Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Loom Systems webinar. With you is Gabby Menahem. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Loom Systems, and I have with me Tim McGraw, which is a distinguished engineer within our team and was also a customer a few years back. So happy to have you with us, Tim.
Howdy.
So guys, as we promised, today we're going to talk to you about predicting customer tickets. Basically, the application of AI in IT operations. And this one has been one that we've been waiting for, I would say, about 3 years. So since we started this company, this has been the vision. And now I can say that we're over this hump and this product is available generally to all of our customers. And we're here to talk about how you can make use of it, what's the benefit, and how we used it in other places already. So without any further ado, let me introduce myself. My name is Gabby, and I started this company after being 15 years in the industry. And basically, I had two fundamental problems that I think are still not solved to this day. One is that I always had problems finding skillful people to solve issues. It's always a big problem to find these people that have the knowledge, have the stamina to keep doing this, and have the mindset of being business aware, trying to solve the customer's problem. The second problem is always about doing it fast. And I think today, with the digital transformation, it's becoming increasingly hard to keep up to customer expectations. And that's why we started Loom Systems. So Loom's mission has always been to improve customer experience by predicting and preventing incidents in digital systems. And we do that before they affect the customers. The idea here is really to find a way so that even if the customers don't complain, or before they complain, we want to find out about issues and have your IT operations, your existing IT operations people, solve these problems without any hiccups. In the past, what we found is that IT used dashboards to do analysis, and even to find out about issues that are really inside their workflow and things that they know of. They used to look at dashboards either in a NOC or in a SOC. The way to do it today is still to look at dashboards. Today, what we're looking to do is replace that manual labor of this cognitive ability, looking at all these systems and find out that there's a problem. Do the analysis so that your customers can be happy. And to the center of this show, what we're about to present is predicting customer tickets, AI in ITOps. So before we go into explaining the solution, first we always need to consider the problem. And the problem is that IT is passive in response. The way that issues come to the mindset of the IT person today is through customers that open tickets in ServiceNow or any other ITSM tool, but to a large extent, that's what we see in the market in most enterprises. And of course, this is enterprise focused. That ticket goes into the ITSM team that tries to figure out if it's a service call or if it's an incident that needs to be triaged and fixed. If that's an incident and it has something to do with the underlying systems, what happens is that it goes to the IT operations team to look at and to investigate whether this is something that they can fix themselves, or do they need the application owners, the developers, anyone else. That workflow is how IT is done today. And to a large extent, that has worked up until the last 3 years, where customers grew to the reality that really established companies like Facebook and Google brought to the world a better experience for everyone. And now customers expect every bank, insurance company, even packaged good companies to be at the level of Google. So how do we do that? What we see here on the screen is that when user complaints meet metrics that are either looked at by rules or by dashboards, as we described them before, we get a ticket. And that ticket is transferred to IT operations, and the outcome is usually a negative business impact, because the way that this was brought into the business, to the awareness of these people, is by already affecting the customer on the business issue. So customers don't look at your business like you're an IT shop. They look at you as a business center, someone that gives them a service. And that level of understanding should go to the IT person, because today IT is no longer just enablement, it's the way that business is done. So to remove the impact from false alert and cost of our orchestration, and to a large extent also oversimplification of the way that we do monitoring, what we need is a cognitive system that is able to remove a lot of that manual work that IT operations are doing when they triage today, and then have the ability to run that as a monitoring solution instead of an investigation platform after the business problem has already happened. And how do we do that? Basically, to be proactive, what we need to do is just reverse the order. And the idea is that if you can look at logs, which was the end of the workflow, proactively, and if we can enable ourselves to understand the business process, the standard process that brings a customer to the success factor that they're looking for, we can find anomalies and trends and proactively fix issues when they come about. We don't need the customers to tell us anything. We don't need to monitor any metrics. We just want to find out about the problem and have a way to get to the resolution faster. So introducing predictive ticketing. The way that it works, and in this picture what you can see, is that Loom sits as a tool that connects to both your servers, either applications, the servers themselves, any kind of middleware or devices. Basically, everything that emits logs, you can connect in a second. And that is the first connection that you have to do. That's what Loom is studying and learning from in order to understand what's going on in your standard procedures and where the anomalies are. The next connection is connecting to your ITSM solution. So in this case, ServiceNow, who Loom is in the process of partnering with, and we are able to connect through their API. So it's a configuration of 2 minutes where Loom can understand everything that is going on inside your ITSM solution. Take all those tickets and learn from them by correlating the anomalies from logs and the tickets that were open by customers or by your internal systems. And then as an outcome, Loom can open predictive tickets. If you're asking yourself, how does that look like? It basically explains to the IT operations guy, someone is having an issue logging into the bank. And the way to solve it, by looking at the way that you've done this before, is to do this and that. And that's the benefit that we're trying to bring to the market. Solve the skill set problem by giving the resolutions to the IT person, and solve the time by detecting faster and being totally aware of everything that is going on. One thing that is not obvious to everyone is that when you're a customer today, when you go into a big business that has done a digital transformation, just like a bank, if you have a problem with their UI or with their system, let's say a transaction doesn't go through or you can't log in, as I said, you're not opening a ticket. So the reality is not that it just takes time. The reality in many businesses is that a lot of these business problems, a customer that is unhappy, are not even brought to the attention of IT. And that way they can't even solve that problem. That creates churn. And we're here to solve it with this data model. So let me explain how we're looking at things and what's the way to solve the problem by the illustration that I just gave. Our data model starts much like intelligence is done in the best intelligence organizations in the world. The first layer is called the data layer. And that's the layer where every log line is entered into the system, and people have to look at that log line to try to realize how to visualize it. So the best of breed and the state of the art today is, or are, systems in the information layer, where you provide some sort of visualization on top of your raw data. This visualization can be a methodology like, show me how many errors per minute I have in my systems. And usually that looks like log management solutions or metric aggregations. And you can see it here in the middle of the screen. Whenever you have a spike, though, the way to understand what's going on is still an investigation. So a lot of cognitive ability has to be put in place by manual work of your employees to solve that problem. The way to get around it is to have a system like Sophie. Sophie is our AI component that can predict and prevent the problems in your digital system. It can look at the data layer, and without going through the manually intensive process of defining the information layer, it can go directly into the intelligence layer shown above, where you find out about an insight from your raw data that describes a problem, a business problem, just like this one. Seems like bad configuration is causing user transactions to fail. And with that comes a recommendation for action. So we can solve the skill set problem and have your IT solve this issue, not just be aware of it. And so bundling these two together is the way that we can predict a problem for the customers, because this all happens in real time and is connected to the way that you solve problems. So you can see how we took Sophie and we built a new thing for the world where you no longer have to have a separate UI for another system. You can use your existing workflow, just like it's shown here, by adding Loom as a loop inside your existing workflow. And that would get you to be proactive in your environment. What's the benefit, you might ask yourself? So what we see customers having as the benefit is first eliminating outages. And that's the holy grail of IT. I think in my years in this industry, I'm hearing vendors talk about eliminating outages over and over again, but with failing results. And the reason is because they're too focused on lowering the amount of alerts, focusing better the energy of IT operations to solve issues. But none of that is predictive, and none of that is focused on the underlying issues that are happening inside the systems. With that workflow that I'm showing you today, we can actually reduce and eliminate outages by being proactive in solving the issues. It's before the customers complain. Second thing is about reducing unplanned downtime. Downtime in any sort of system has moved from being the server being unresponsive or not seeing a UI at all to having an issue that only a handful of people have. So for example, today in a multi-device environment, if I'm trying to log into a service with my old iPhone, for example, and there's a problem just with my version, still, that's not going to show up in any monitoring solution. But by looking at the logs, we can understand that a handful of people have this problem. We can further investigate by Sophie's cognitive ability that the underlying narrative is a specific version of the iPhone and bring it to the attention of the IT guy. That's how you can reduce unplanned downtime, not just from the sense of complete downtime, but also very segregated, customer-aware downtime. Last thing is about being proactive and business-aware. I think the holy grail for IT in the last years have been, how do we connect between the business problem and IT? Because when we have a problem today with a customer, that's a business problem. It might be that IT is causing that problem, but to solve it, we also need to have the business awareness. And that's not something that has been in training for IT for years now. So the way to solve it is by having a system that can correlate these two issues and bring to the attention of the IT guy what's going on and what is the business impact. The way that we do it today is if we can take the tickets from your existing customers and learn from them, we can draw clusters and we can draw the conclusions on what makes sense. It's not different from the way that your people are learning their new job. It's just infinitely faster and more diligent. So that's how you're going to become a better enterprise and fix these issues before the customers complain. Some metrics that you can see here are to cut alert noise by 93%. And all of these metrics are drawn from customers that we worked with, usually in the Fortune 1000 in the US. And when we say to cut the noise by 93%, we mean that Sophie and our predictive ticketing system is able to show you incidents in a way that would only signify 7% of the alerts and have all of them within the circle of care, the things that your customers are affected by and that you would want to fix. And it can do that because it can learn from your existing tickets how you solved them, how much time it took you, and what you did. Also, the improvement of MTTR, which is what the managers look at, is and can be improved by 45%. This is the result that we get between 2 months to 4 months after implementation. So in the terms that IT are looking at today, that's virtually instant. And the last metric is about being proactive. How much more proactive can you be in solving issues before customers actually tell you about them? So it's not like monitoring solutions today are not allowing you to know about certain things before, but with the granularity that I was talking about, with the understanding of how does this connect to business, and having an ability for the system to learn by itself from your logs, you can be 4 times more proactive. And that's again with the same time frame of 2 to 4 months from implementation. So what should you do now? And that's what customers ask me after I describe to them this wonder that we call predictive ticketing. So our recipe or playbook for success is in a regular form of 30, 60, 90. And in the first 30 days, what you want to do is you want to map your customers' issues to the Pareto of where are the underlying systems that are creating these problems and what is the best place to start employing an AI approach. And when I talk about this, let me give some reference to that. And maybe, Tim, you want to jump in and kind of say some things about what customers are doing. But basically here, you want to connect between the business layer and IT. You want to have the manager or the business line manager that has the ability to understand the impact. And you want to have the IT person that can understand where these problems usually originate from. And once you have both in the room, you can draw where the majority of problems come from. You do this priority list because you're trying to figure out where to get the best benefit and how to get the momentum of this AI approach inside your organization in a quarter. And that's what we find to be the best metric. If you can do this in a quarter, in the next quarter, it's going to grow 10 times more because the organization is going to be hooked and your customers are going to give you a better NPS score just based on your IT performance. So Tim, do you have anything to add to that based on the experience that we've had?
Sure, thanks, Gab. The primary advice I would give you if you're thinking about implementing a solution like this is to recognize the impact that it can have across your organization by empowering all of your groups and all of your different log sources, all the subject matter experts, all of the legacy systems. If you include them in the initial phases and you make sure that they're aware of what you're doing, they can help give you access to the logs, but they can also help determine what is actually being logged. So you can enrich your logs. They can often get ideas about things that Loom could work on that you're not even monitoring yet. And this is something that typically takes people a little while to realize, but it's a very powerful aspect about the impact that Loom can have in an enterprise environment.
Great, thank you. So let's look at the 60-day plan. The next thing that you have to do is define the KPIs that define your customer experience. And that's not an easy process. Some expectations that you might have for these are purely technical. And we find that customers usually talk about how fast did the page load, or is the user experience monitored for specific metrics like how fast does the database respond and how fast can you see things on the screen. But these are not the only customer experience metrics that you want to look at, because the real opportunity here is to look at the total experience of the customer. Customers that use your systems don't just look at the time things take. They also look at whether they get a specific workflow that they're used to. So to be able to monitor that, you would need to have a monitoring solution that looks at the standard way people use your system and make sure that other customers are following the same process. That's very hard to do without an AI solution, because you virtually have to create any tree of how customers interact with your systems. And we've already established that we're no longer interested just in statistics. We're interested in every customer. And I think every management these days is struggling to have that every customer counts mentality. With an AI system, you can track any customer behavior and make sure that the KPIs for that experience are maintained and they're consistent across all their experience on your website, on all your systems. So by defining these KPIs, you're actually building yourself to the point that you can monitor this with any kind of system. But moving to the 90 days plan, you want to do this with AI. And the reason is that with today's fast market and subscription model, we see that customers are moving into better systems, and newer experiences, not in the time frame of years, but in the time frame of months and sometimes even weeks. So you need a system that can adapt and can be aware of a very large environment that changes on a daily basis. Still, you want to give the same customer experience or even better one. So you want a solution that is able to figure out what's going on and what's the standard use of that system and highlight problems. Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
Thanks. I think that building on that, I would say that it's okay to think of this as an iterative process. As you begin, you're not going to know everything about your environment, and a little bit of planning goes a long way, but you should be comfortable saying, I don't know at certain points, and you should be comfortable bringing people in later and then coming back and revisiting those topics. In that way, you can start to reap the benefits immediately, but you can grow into it at the same time.
Great, thank you. So we're right at the end of this 30-minute webinar, and I'd love to take a question from the audience. And I know that, Tim, you've been gathering the questions up until now. So what do we have from everyone?
The first question is, can you connect to other ticketing systems or APIs?
So the short answer is yes. We're able to connect to more systems, and that can be done through integrations that we already have, or also building onto our webhooks that an API layer that we have within Loom. If you're using a specific system that we don't support until now, and I think right now we're at about 8 systems that we can support, I would say that you should approach us, and we would be glad to look at it and give you some advice on how we see ourselves moving forward with that in the roadmap.
The next question is, I know I have users that don't create tickets when they should. Are you saying that predictive ticketing helps identify the problems that users aren't telling us about? Good question.
So I'd say that this is exactly why we started this technology. I think every IT leader or even a business leader are confronting this problem on a daily basis. Customers are not part of your organization. They're the beneficiary of your organization, and they expect you to have the proper layers. Just like QA, you don't stop there. When things are in production, you need to have a way, a process to be better. And what better process can you have by just looking at everything that is happening and realize if it's getting outside the norm? The way to do it is only with predictive ticketing today.
Thanks, that was a great question. The next one is, how long does it take to set up Loom in an environment?
So with many of our customers, the setup, as you mentioned, is incremental. I would say that the first phase with setting the system, either in an on-prem or in a SaaS solution, can take anywhere between 2 minutes to an hour. But that's just about installing, streaming information, and starting getting the benefit. That the second phase about the constant improvement and adoption has to do with what we call the AI playbook. So Loom has built an AI playbook that enables enterprises to take advantage of these new technologies, removing the fear from employees and using existing personnel to work a checklist that is very easy to follow, but then reaps the benefits of this amazing technology. I would say that this process to get the full benefits, and especially the statistics that we've shown, takes between 2 to 4 months, working with at least 50% of a single employee's time in implementing for the solution.
Thanks, Gab. The next question is one that I can relate to. I've always found the logs to contain a lot of useless information. How does Loom know not to show me that?
And I just see that we're at the end of our time. So let me just answer this. This is my favorite question. I think the way that we are looking at logs needs to change. Logs are the richest data source that we have in the organization as relates to IT. It's where we go to when we need to investigate. So by having a cognitive system that does this for us, we shouldn't expect it to just be an aggregation. We should expect it to actually do the work that people are doing today. So it needs to be an investigator for us, do the analysis, not just the aggregation that brings us some attention to what's going on. And that's exactly what we were striving to do 3 years ago. And what I'm happy to report that we've done successfully with customers until today. So there you have it. Now you know about predictive ticketing, and you have your 90-day plan of how you're going to be successful with implementing this. We're super excited to have you interact with us, learn, get some advice, and obviously, we are your vendor of choice if you want to be successful with predictive ticketing. Thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you in our next webinar as well, where we're going to deep dive into the technology, explaining how customers are using it and some benefits that they have gotten in the last few months.